What we know is that the world has changed. The pandemic changed how we see the world, the ways in which we think, and how we conduct our lives. This crisis has put companies under the test for their commitment to ethical business conduct and CSR. Studies show that consumers would feel proud of their brands for helping their employees and donating money and equipment during the crisis. And that the bond established between the brand and consumer during this crisis era can be more meaningful and lasting. Therefore, the COVID pandemic offers great opportunities for companies to actively engage with their CSR strategies and agenda. Welcome to ReThink podcast. I am your host, Nicoleta Talpeș, and in this episode we will look at the good movement with Marc Cirera, founder and CEO of Companies for Good, a social enterprise designed to help businesses change for good. Marc is a business ethics and CSR specialist with a clear vision, a world where companies operate in a more sustainable and responsible way. Marc, welcome to ReThink.
Thank you so much, Nicoleta.
What we know so far is that the world has changed. And actually the pandemic changed how we see the world, how the ways in which we think. Actually, we are here at ReThink in order to see what are our news, our perspectives on lives. And my first question, and I would like to discuss with you, because this is a discussion about doing good. Was it easier before the pandemic, or is it easier now to do good?
Well, it's never easy to do good, to be honest. We live in a society that we focus a lot on profits. We focus a lot on consuming, on wealth, and not so much about the planet or the well-being of society. So we always need to make a little effort to do good. However, we do see that people now are slightly more connected, more aware that things cannot continue as business as usual, because simple thing like a pandemic can change everybody's lives. And so we have seen a shift in people's mindset that people want to spend more time with their loved ones. They want to spend more time in nature. They are rethinking the way we want to live. So yeah, we have seen that change.
Mm-hmm. But I think that this crisis has put more pressure on the companies to think of the social good and on their CSR strategies. And did you see this transition from CSR to sustainability? Is there a transition between these concepts?
We have seen a change, but not all the companies are in the same place in the sustainability journey. So of course, the beginning, more like 80s, 90s, it was just about CSR, doing some actions, isolated actions here and there. Now we have some companies that are really advanced in terms of the way they think, the way they set up their business strategy is very aligned with the sustainability of the planet as well as the business. And then you have loads of companies in between of the sustainability journey. Some of them are combining, they're doing some isolated CSR actions here and there, along with changing their operations and their way of functioning. Others are much more smart and more strategic in the way they approach it. There is really a variety. What we have seen is that the companies that make the biggest impact are, of course, those companies that are thinking about it in a holistic way.
And what is your role in all this? What is the story of Companies for Good?
Well, we're here to change businesses for good. So we want to make a positive impact, and we want to play our role into helping companies as well as people that are part of those companies to navigate that journey and to create a positive impact on the planet and the communities. So we start with something simple, like let's go one day to do a beach cleanup. Let's go to do a tree planting event. Let's go to support some children with special needs. So something that is more a team building activity to start raising awareness and create that engagement. And then we try to walk along those businesses to go further. So, okay, you have planted trees, that's fantastic, but how can you as a company do things differently so we consume less of the trees that are in the planet? How can we reduce the impact we have in terms of carbon emissions? How can we reduce the amount of waste we produce, and so on and so forth? So our actions are very focused on raising awareness and creating a spark on people and companies to them help them become more sustainable organizations.
But when did you start this this movement? Let's say like this.
Yeah, the good movement, we call it. I started it in 2017 here in the UAE. So it's 5 years now since we started, and it's been an amazing journey. And we have seen how companies are much more switched on and much more kind of responsible and aware that we all need to do something to create a more sustainable society.
But you have experience in other countries as well. If there is a comparison you would like to present us, how is the sustainability and CSR ecosystem in Dubai comparing to other regions in the world you worked before?
It's growing much faster than in other places. The government is really behind it, making commitments. It's in everybody's mouth and everybody's minds. So it's growing a lot and it's really positive. However, we start from behind other places. So for instance, before coming to Dubai, I was working in London, in UK, as a sustainability consultant. And I could see that over there, the pace of growth was slower, but they were much more advanced. Because in Europe, I'm originally from Barcelona, and back in Europe, the concept of sustainability started earlier than here, perhaps like 5 or 10 years earlier. So here we're catching up really fast, and it's really good, and we need to continue doing that. But we are not, the market is not as mature as it is back in Europe, based on my experience.
And that is maybe due to the strategy of systemic changes and the involvement of the authorities and the legislation, which is quite, let's say, clear in Europe, at least. And this is why I was going to ask you, and I prepared a question about systemic changes. And what do we need here in the region for these systemic changes to happen, actually?
Yes. It's a combination of things. I think that there are 3 kind of parties that need to be involved in any change. One is government, one is the private sector, and one is individual society. We have seen in other places in Europe, for instance, how governments have been issuing laws and regulations towards a more sustainable planet much earlier than here. Here, we're still discussing whether to ban or not plastic bags in supermarkets, whether we should be charging for it. In some other countries, 10, 15 years ago, it was already sorted. The recycling thing, part of waste management, like I cannot speak about Europe, but I'm sure in other places, it's also much more developed. It's a no-brainer that we need to recycle at home and everybody's segregating in Europe. Whereas here, we're still on the very early steps. And so that infrastructure and that governmental framework needs to be there. And here they're creating it, but we still need to go further. The private sector, same thing. Businesses are now waking up and they're doing lots of things. We are receiving lots of requests from companies that want to do good, which is fantastic. But it's fairly new for them here. They're still like testing the waters. And the last part, individual society. I think in Dubai, in the UAE, we have a melting pot of cultures, which is absolutely amazing. But as we know, when it comes to taking care of our planet and having like an equalitarian society, in some people and some cultures have different levels of understanding and different levels of maturity. And so we also need everybody here and everywhere in the world, indeed, to play their role. We have so much power in our hands as individuals. Every time we are about to buy something to consume, we're making an impact on society and the planet. With that purchasing power, we can change things. We can buy from companies that are producing things in a more ethical way, that are treating their employees properly, or we can buy just the cheapest stuff and go along with it. We can buy things that are made in a sustainable way, or we can just buy things that are destroying the planet. And even more importantly, before we buy, we need to think, do I really need that? Why am I buying this? Because most of the time, most of us are buying stuff just because, and we are living in a consuming society. But that is putting like a huge burden on a planet that is, limited planet with a limited amount of resources. And if we have a growing population and a growing demand of products, there is no way we're gonna make it. We're not gonna find the resources.
Yes, actually, in the end, it's about it's a matter of personal choice. And claims about making a difference are no longer sufficient because people are also requiring, let's say, they want to know whether their time, their money, and efforts are making a difference. How do you measure the impact of your activities, of a company CSR activity?
We measure it in different ways. One of it is the direct impact we make through our actions. So for instance, if we're doing, let's say, a desert cleanup, we are measuring all the trash that we find in terms of types of trash, in terms of kilograms, and then we report it back to the authorities so they can issue policies and they can know what's going on. Or if we're planting trees, the amount of trees planted, etc. So that's the most direct impact. We also measure it in terms of awareness and education. So we run surveys among all the participants, and we find that 9 out of 10 tell us that they learned something new during that day of doing the activity. A huge amount of people also tell us that they met a new colleague during that activity, that they also commit to do something different in their lives. So there's also that part of the personal impact. And then in terms of business impact as well, we see that companies are telling us how the more CSR activities they do, the more engaged their staff is, and the better culture they have, and therefore the better is the organization working.
Yes, it's easier to see the results in terms of customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. But also people think that companies can do good and make money. Can companies prove them wrong? I mean, a company can be profitable and do good in the same time. How do you measure this?
100%, yes. Sometimes people say that business ethics is like an oxymoron, right? That is like contradictory. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. I mean, there are so many businesses, big, medium, and small, that are doing good and are being profitable at the same time. You have like large multinational companies like Patagonia, for instance, who for many years have been doing an amazing work, leading the way in terms of sustainability. And they're like a multinational company, very profitable. And you have small companies, like in Dubai, we have so many entrepreneurs and social businesses that are doing amazing in all areas, like in sustainable packaging, in organic farming, in education. They're doing very well financially, and they're making a positive impact with their day-to-day activities. And I think Companies for Good is actually an example of that. For 5 years, we have been a profitable business, and everything we do is related to helping companies do good for society or the environment. So it is definitely possible.
It can be profitable. Yeah.
Yes, and we need more of it. And actually, I mean, that's my personal point of view. But I think if a business is just profitable without making a positive contribution to society, without adding any value, to me is meaningless. Because at the end of the day, companies are made of people. And that people, which is any one of us, live in a planet. We need both. We need society to be happy. We need the planet to be healthy. If we're just making money, what's the point of it? I mean, that's my personal perspective. But if there's a way to make money and at the same time do some good, like let's try to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What are the most common activities people want to be involved, or companies want to be involved because they are the one deciding?
Yes, to be honest, it changes a lot especially here in Dubai, it changes a lot on the weather and the season. Right now, because the weather is nice, everybody wants to do outdoor activities. So we are like doing lots of tree planting events and lots of beach cleanups and outdoor activities that make a positive impact for the planet. Now in April, Ramadan is coming, so then we're going to shift towards a more community focused activities. We're going to be doing lots of packing events and distribution for blue collar laborers and so on. And then summer is coming, so then probably it's going to be more about online or indoor activities. So there is a lot of variety, to be honest, and it really depends. What people want at the end of the day is to do something that, one, makes a positive impact, but two, that they have fun. People really want to have that element of having a good time with colleagues while they're making a positive impact.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you that they want to keep memories of all these activities, and it should be fun, of course.
Yes.
But before ending our interview, I would like to ask you, how do you imagine the world you would like to live in?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, I don't think we can ever live in a perfect world. I mean, we always going to have like conflicts. We're always going to have dilemmas. I mean, whenever you want to create, like, let's say, a factory to bring economic prosperity into a region, that will have some impact into the environment of the region. And so you always have to balance things out. But I do believe that we can live in a world that is much more balanced. Right now, probably the focus is 95% on economics and profitability, regardless how people or the planet feels. I really believe we need to shift to get to a place that is more like even. So I do believe in the kind of in a system that people can create wealth and be happy and work. So we need to achieve that, but at the same time, always take care of the environment and the people that live in that community.
We have to rethink the way we used to live before the pandemic. Yes,
exactly.
Marc,
yes.
Marc, thank you so much for your presence, and I hope to see you again soon at the ReThink podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.